heater! I dare you to hit it!
He'll be sorry.
Want the heater? I'll give it to you.
A swing and a drive to deep right.
Clear the deck. Cannonball coming.
Left field. It is out of here.
What up? What's good? Baseball Unstitched. We are back, Flax. Baseball is being played at every level right now, pro and college. I know you're in heaven, so am I.
Oh yeah, a lot of multi-views on my TV the last couple of nights.
If only all of you knew what Flax does when it comes to multi-view, it's insanity. It's pretty impressive, to be honest with you. That's all I have there. Maybe one day, Flax, we will show people on the socials how you multi-view.
Yeah.
Which would require me to come over and take a picture because it is more than just the quad box that most people are assuming.
Yeah, I generally have six to 8 games going on at once, depending on what type of multi-views are offered on the iPad apps.
It is thoroughly impressive, and the fact of the matter is, guys, is he somehow pays attention to all of them.
Somehow. It's this little thing called ADHD. I've had it my whole life.
I love it. Good show for you guys today, starting with This Week in Baseball. The signings have slowed down, so we are going to start to give you guys spring training highlights. Obviously, we only have 2 games to go off of today. We'll still highlight some players anyways for you. Also, going to be talking about the Guardians, Pobo Chris Antonelli and his GM Mike Chernoff and some of the statements that were recently made as it pertains to the Guardians spending or maybe just attempting to go after top-end free agents is a good way to put that. We're going to rock and roll and spotlight some college baseball for you guys. 2 teams overperforming and underperforming. And then Jackson's Bullpen, your favorite section, our favorite section. We're excited to find out what Jackson wants to talk about today. And finally, 3 bubble rookies who will make their opening day rosters. But Flax, first and foremost, how was your weekend?
Weekend was good. I got up to the mountains. I went snowboarding in Breck for half a day. Conditions are horrendous. It was very windy, but I made a good half day out of it. And then today, you and I got on the baseball field. So pretty good weekend altogether. How was your weekend?
Good, yeah. Two nice little BP home runs for Flax today. Swing was looking good, both sides. One from the right side, one from the left side. That's really hard to do, ladies and gentlemen, if you weren't already curious.
No one's going to believe the right-handed one, by the way.
I thought my round was all right. I definitely wasn't bashing balls out, but I was sticking to the plan in BP today. Looked at some houses with the lady, so been a pretty good week. I do have to hop on a red eye tonight to go to Atlanta for work. We're not super excited about that, but hey, that's how life works sometimes. This week in baseball, Flax, I'm going to just go with the one signing, and then we're just going to really quickly jump into some guys who had really good starts to spring training, a.k.a. really good starts in 2 games, so take it for what it is, ladies and gentlemen. The Cardinals sign Ramon Urias to a 1-year, $2 million deal. Flax, tell the people about Ramon.
Gold Glove third baseman, will consistently take good swings, take good at bats, but more than anything, he's a veteran and a guy who's now been on teams that have been successful in his time in Baltimore. I think for a young ball club like the Cardinals, this is a smart move just as a strong bench bat if it becomes that situation. I think there's going to be younger guys fighting for opening day roster spots, but the likelihood is the Cardinals will slow play them. And Ramon fits into that role of just taking on at bats as necessary early in the season. So good signing. It's $2 million for 1 year. If he plays well enough and the Cardinals don't compete, they'll flip him for some pitching, some young pitching upside at the turn, something they can develop at the turn. Watched a lot of golf this weekend as well. At the deadline for something that they can grow with in the future.
Yeah, completely agree with you here. I think one of the biggest things that we underrate with Urias, and it's one of the things that I put in our tweet about him, was the fact that for a half-season guy, he actually paces 20 home runs most of the time if you were to give him a full subset of at-bats. So this is a guy who has good pop in the bat coming off of the bench and also the ability to play 3 to really probably 5 positions if you really had to ask him to do it on the field.
He also, and Cardinals fans will notice this, it never looks like he's hitting the ball hard and it will just fly forever. I've never seen somebody just kind of wave the bat at the ball. Well, I have. His name's Alex Rodriguez. but he's not Alex Rodriguez. But the way he waves the bat at the ball and it just kind of goes forever is very similar. It's fun to watch.
I like it. I think it was a good pickup for the team. Like you said, Heim Bloom got himself an opportunity here to potentially get some pieces at the deadline, pending where the Cardinals are. Flax, way too early to get excited. Spring training results is what we're going with today. Again, we're normally going to have a full week of results. Today is Sunday, so there's really only about 2 games per team to talk about. We're going to run through these quick. Give me a note on each of these guys. Brady House for the Washington Nationals, 2 home runs in his first spring training game.
Yeah, he's seeing the ball well. I think, the Nationals, young guys, love seeing the juice now, to be fair. Saw that juice from the young guys in spring training last year, and then they all got moved to the bottom of the lineup come the regular season. So
it'll be interesting. House had a really nice year in the minors last year, was able to hit his way onto the major league roster. Big note from Nats fans and people who got to watch him last year was the power disappeared at the big league level. So we're hoping to see that this year, and 2 home runs to start spring training is a good place to start. Aaron Judge, I'm not sure if you knew this, but he plays for the New York Yankees. He hit 2 home runs in his first spring training game.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron Judge is doing Aaron Judge things. This is fun for him because people are actually throwing him strikes. He's just taking advantage of the opportunity.
Yeah, he's going to see more strikes in the next month than he probably will for the entirety of the rest of the season. So
yeah,
if I was him, I would also be excited to see it. On a different note, though, Spencer Jones with a completely revamped swing for the 2nd year in a row starts off by hitting a home run in his first spring training game.
Yeah, it's got a little bit more of an Ohtani feel than a Judge feel to it. I'd love to see him just swing his own swing at some point. But he hit the ball 117 miles an hour off the bat, which is hard. He's a huge human being. The swing and miss is really bad, but what I like that he has gone to is a toe tap or a toe down and a heel lift move. I think it keeps his head still just a hair longer so he can make some better swing decisions. But the biggest thing is that he's still drifting forward through that swing with his hips, with his head, and with his arms and his hands. He's just getting too far out in front of the ball. The home run he hit, he hooked down the right field line, basically. I'd like to see the power that he has to the middle of the field. I think that's when you'll really start to see some good extension, seeing the ball a little bit deeper in the zone, better swing decisions. We saw it for like a very short period of time at the AAA level last year. I think we can see that translate to the big leagues if he can find that flow.
Yeah, when we're talking about a guy with a really high K rate, one of the first things that you and I always talk about is double checking how much movement is in the head, especially going back towards the pitcher. Speeding the ball up in those scenarios is probably the worst thing that you can do, unfortunately, as a hitter. Now, on the flip side, if you're Spencer Jones and you've revamped your swing twice in 2 seasons, choosing to revamp your swing like Aaron Judge and then Shohei Ohtani, not the worst choices. So I'm really hoping.
And there's very few guys. And there's very few guys in the league that I would say have the strength and size to emulate both of them. He is a guy that has the strength and size to do it. It's just not like what Ohtani does is not a natural move. I think that's the hard part. What Judge does, a lot of guys have tried. Most fail after short periods of time. Most have not had the sustained success following that HLP methodology with the high leg lift and with the hang. It's hard to do. You have to be insanely strong. You have to have an unbelievably above average hand-eye coordination and decision-making skill.
Completely agree. Your new hometown leader, Pete Alonso, 2 home runs to start his spring training in his first season with the Baltimore Orioles.
2 things I like about it. The first one came on a 3rd at bat in game 1, which he really wasn't supposed to have. Every other guy ahead of him had left the lineup already. I think there were 2 of them. He left the lineup already. He decided to stay, take a 3rd at bat, hit a first pitch curveball a long way. But the other thing I love is that it's been noted by a lot of the beat reporters that Pete Alonso has been like front step, right behind the on deck circle, being a leader. Like I think Pete stepped in and has just said all the right things, done all the right things. Orioles fans are excited. I think they have every right to be.
Yeah, Alonso talked a lot about how one of the main reasons he went to Baltimore was due to the pitch and what they put in front of him, our Mike Eliason team did. And I think this really shows you that one of the things that they wanted out of Alonso was to be a true veteran clubhouse presence. And Pete's stepping into that role, it looks like, extremely well to start early on in his tenure. A name that I've always enjoyed and a guy that I've liked, a little slower last year, was hurt, Jose Miranda for the Padres now. He's 5 for 6 with 2 doubles and a home run as he's fighting for a roster spot.
Yeah, so they just signed Nick Castellanos to basically a league minimum deal because the Phillies are paying the other $20 million that he's getting. And so I'm curious to see where Jose Miranda fits. Castellanos is doing a lot of work at first base already in spring training. Miranda would be the weak side platoon for Gavin Sheets at first base if he were to stick on the roster. Curious to see where it all lands, but if Jose Miranda keeps hitting like this for the entirety of the spring, it's going to be hard not to see him making that team.
Yes, solid right-handed bat with a lot of pop. I know injuries to me are really what derailed him a little bit with Minnesota and their clearing house. This is a guy who's played multiple positions as well, so it'll be really interesting to see if he can be, for the second year in a row, another impact bat similar to Gavin Sheets that makes the Padres lineup, and somebody you just frankly didn't expect to do it. Finally, Matt Shaw was 2 for 4 today with no Ks for the Cubs. Generally, that wouldn't be something we bring up, but he also overhauled his swing, hitting 2 really hard singles today. You love to see it from Matt Shaw.
It's been a little bit of a progression with his swing. Before we saw a very closed-off stance, not a huge leg kick to begin with. Then as the season wore on, he went down with an injury, came back with a totally different swing that looked a little bit more open, a little bit more visibility. I think that was big for him getting to the big league level and recognizing he was kind of closing off his ability to see the ball. Now he's adding a little bit of a leg kick and a leg hang, similar to what we talked about with Spencer Jones and Aaron Judge. I'm curious to see how well he's able to maintain a standard weight transfer throughout that swing and throughout a season. Anytime you add that kind of movement to a swing, 162 adds up on you. It's hard when you get to the middle of the summer maintaining that same swing every single time and finding success with it. But if he can cut down on Ks and continue to barrel the ball like he has been doing his entire career, we're going to see him actually put on a display for the Cubs this year.
Yeah, the leg hang that we see in most HLP approaches does generally require your core to be arguably the strongest thing in the entirety of your body, no matter what. And even when it is, that doesn't mean that you can do it. So it will be interesting to see what Shaw does. Now, Flax, the real question for Matt Shaw is who will have more stance changes this year, Matt Shaw or Joey Ortiz?
Joey Ortiz, no question in my mind. I still can't, and if you haven't seen it, I put a tweet out there of the 6 months of the season. Joey Ortiz had a different stance every month. And I will say this for Joey Ortiz. By the time he went to take his swing, he did a good job of getting back to the same hitting position. The problem with changing your stance over and over again is your timing is out of whack. So he was late all year long, except for like a short bit at the beginning of the season and I think again in like July. So I'm going to say Joey Ortiz with over under 5.5 swing changes.
I love it. And to Joey Ortiz's credit, at least he's trying. There's a lot of guys who would just keep doing the same thing to get the same result. And for those of you who don't know, that is the definition of insanity. Flex, let's get into topic number 1 of the day. Cleveland Guardians Pobo, Chris Antonelli, and GM Mike Chernoff have been considered sleeping by many this offseason. The Guardians are well known for not spending, especially on the offensive side of the ball, throughout their overall history, if we're being completely honest with that statement. Mike Chernoff, a couple weeks ago, made an interesting statement saying, we don't play top-tier free agents. What we believe he was trying to say is some words that needed to be added in there, which is we don't play or try to sign top-tier free agents. We know that caused a little bit of a storm for Guardians fans, and frankly, probably rightfully so when you're talking about a team that's had as much success as they have had with young players on the offensive side of the ball and when it comes to their pitching staff as well. Really interested into getting into this conversation because I think we both agree within revenue sharing and everything going on with the CBA, part of not signing guys, especially right now, might be a little bit of this like, hey, we're making a stand because we don't agree with what's going on in the league. Fine. I think we could put that out there, say it, and probably leave it alone. At the same time, one of the big things that keeps coming up for both the Pobo and GM of the Guardians is the fact that they're trying to get young players plate appearances on a regular basis. And I guess this is where my soapbox kind of starts in this topic. We're talking about a Guardians team who has 8 guys who fall into the bucket of young guys that you want to get plate appearances and at-bats. That doesn't mean that all 8 of those guys are currently starters of the 13 guys expected to make the roster. Let's also add on the fact that they've got 2 top prospects that are relatively close in Travis Bazzana and Angel Jano. Now, here's the issue with all of this, Flax. The Guardians are consistently in the running to win the AL Central. The Guardians made a ALCS run in 2024. So I pose the question on a regular basis that's very simple. There are options out there that have major league track records of being good offensive bats that do not cost you $100 million.
Sure.
So I wonder, why are we continuing to have this focus when the guys you're trying to get at bats are out of options players like Gabriel Arias, Brian Rocchio, and Nolan Jones? I think there's a high likelihood that 1 out of 3 of those guys is even on the roster by the time the CBA is finally signed. You've got young bats that you really like in Manzardo, Kefis, DeLauder, Valera, Angel Martinez, Jonathan Rodriguez, who I think you want to get at bats, but at the same time, not a single person that I just mentioned there has more than 2 full years of Major League service time. So therefore, they're going to be probably under that 1,500 plate appearances that require us, for a team like Cleveland, who does look heavily into data analytics, to give you a sample size that tells you what they may or may not do on a more consistent basis. So I'm curious, Flax, what do you think the Guardians should be doing here? Do the pocketbooks need to open? How do the Guardians get over the hump? Because guess what? As good as they've been, they haven't won a World Series yet.
Yeah, it's so hard for me to say, yeah, spend more. Because the reality of the situation as a business is that they got caught in a nasty storm that a lot of other teams did when it came to the TV revenue. You're talking about a team that probably was gaining somewhere between $50 and $60 million a year in TV revenue on their own deal, got hit by a bankruptcy case, as did a bunch of other teams, turned into about $10 to $20 million a year. So the reality of the situation is, you want them to spend more money. Where are they getting the money from? They don't own the spaces around their stadium to make tons of money from bars like other teams like the Braves have done and plenty of others are starting to do. They are in a small market around TV as it is. Their fan base, while great, is a blue-collar fan base. You're not about to change the pricing models at the stadium, the ticket sales at the stadium, to a point where your fans can't come to the game. They can't afford to be at the game. They don't want to come to the game. So you have to make it affordable, so you have to make money elsewhere. But right now that doesn't exist. And so when I look at what they did with, say, J-Ram and adding on that extension, it tells me that there is expected future revenue. There's expected opportunity to sign guys. I look at a guy like Chase DeLauder. He's probably a guy that's on the list for them that if he starts playing better, they'd like to keep. Kyle Manzardo can figure out how to hit left-handed pitchers a little bit better, and he's a consistent 25 to 35 home run guy. It's a guy that you might take up 2 years of free agency and give a reasonable extension to. There's probably some arms, like a Cade Smith, that fall into that camp that I would love to see them say, you know what? He's a good high-leverage reliever. Let's hang on to him for a little bit. But the money doesn't exist right now. And as business people, as we would like to think of ourselves, we recognize the realities of the situation, that as much as I want them to compete in the offseason for better free agents, and again, I don't love giving a guy like Josh Bell $16 million of that. I think it's absurd. There are better bats, or there were better bats on the market before you did that. But and again, back in the day, but in general, right? This is the same conversation we've been having about this team for the last 5 years. The point still stands. If you're going to spend money, spend it with people who clearly have not only upside, but consistency.
Yeah, I think one of the things that hurts me here in this conversation is you look at a guy like Josh Naylor, who was moved on from, but signs a deal with an AAV of $18.5 million. though I completely agree with you that there's no shot that this team over leverages themselves and makes it so that there's a scenario where their fans can't come watch these games. My personal opinion is that $18.5 million, especially if you're expecting future revenues and changes that are coming up, probably is something that you could have found a way to make work. But I'll also go back and argue, too, that we're talking about a team that hit, I believe, 226 last year, still made the playoffs, still had an opportunity to be extremely good and make a run. It's hard for me to believe that we can't find room for a one-year, $15 million deal for an Eugenio Suarez. I'm not saying that that's exactly the right name to put out here, but it's an example, right? I struggle to believe you can't find a one-year, $12 million deal for Luis Ariz to try to bring in some level of offense for your roster. We're not talking about the Guardians needing to give out another Edwin Encarnacion deal of a guy who was making $20 million a year with him.
And to be fair, going back to the Naylor piece, you push him to sign the deal that he signed by trading him to Arizona.
100%.
You show this guy immediately, hey, it's not fun to bounce around. It's not fun to not know where you're going to be in a year, 2 years after going on his last year of arbitration and being traded right before that, when you probably could have gotten him in a room after this year before anybody else did and signed the same deal that the Mariners did. But because you showed him what it was like to bounce around, he gets to Seattle where he feels good vibes, probably very similar to what he felt in Cleveland. A little bit of excitement, good fan base, opportunity to win, and said, all right, well, now I'm not leaving this. I'm putting myself in a position where I don't have to leave this, where they can't push me out of this. And I think when you look back for the Guardians, this is what they've done with multiple players. I think that's the struggle is, on one side, development's phenomenal. We can't say enough good things about their ability to develop pitchers
100%.
at least.
Yeah, and they've developed some bats. Let's not pretend
sure.
like they haven't.
Sure, but they're developing bat-to-ball guys. They're not developing monster power bats.
100%.
Call it what it is. But I don't need you to. There's two things in this game that you buy. And they're high-end starting pitching, and they are big boppers. You buy those two things, and you develop good bullpen arms, you develop mid-tier rotation arms, and you develop consistent bat-to-ball guys. And you utilize them while you have contract control within the 6 years that you do. And the Guardians do a great job of those three. They do a really poor job of the other two.
I think the other thing we talk about with the Guardians as we move down this is there feels like the Guardians could use their surplus a little bit better. As much as the Guardians don't develop quote-unquote boppers for bats, it's not as if they don't have a decent surplus of high ceiling type guys that others would be interested in from a bat perspective. We also know that whether people like the statement or not, the Guardians can trade just about any pitching prospect that they have and get something back, because the league views them as a pitching lab or pitching factory similar to Tampa Bay. So again, that's a blanket statement and probably a little bit maybe of a stretch by me saying any arm, but point being is people value how they develop arms in pitching. So finding a way to almost do the opposite of what Houston and Baltimore do with their surplus of bats that they know how to develop well, I would like to see the Guardians do a little bit more of being willing to move arms to get what they need from an offensive perspective. But the thing is with that statement is we've watched them do that. Trevor Bauer, Mike Clevenger. So it's not as if they haven't. I just think that maybe they start to utilize some of that while it's at a lower level to bring in major league ready bats where they only have to take on so much of the contract.
The other thing I'll say, just as a side note, Nolan Jones hit a bomb yesterday in spring training. And listen, I want the world for Nolan Jones. I think he is a phenomenal baseball player. The inconsistency and the choice to trade a guy like Tyler Freeman, who gives you more versatility, for a potential home run hitter, because that was their version of buying a bat, is not the direction to do that within. Again, consistency. Like, their ability to find consistent throwers that hold on to certain metrics, we talk about it all the time. They're big guys, they have good extension, they don't have to throw hard, but they generally throw very similar shaped pitches. They know. They've got that down pat. But when it comes to finding bats that can consistently fit in their lineup, the way that they go, quote-unquote, buying bats makes zero sense to me.
I couldn't agree more. I think there's a lot to unpack here. I think outwardly stating that you're not in on top-tier free agents is a poor choice of words at the end of the day. But
you and I talked about it. There's an undertone to that effort as well.
There is the 50-50 in me, and as somebody who watched this team for a very long time at this point, to say, I get some of it, I don't get other parts of it. Now, when the CBA comes around and baseball, Major League Baseball starts to figure out their revenue sharing model, I do believe that the Guardians in their front office will have no excuse to not find a way to get over the World Series hump, because I think they will at that point in time start to have the money to spend. And if you can do what you've done over the last 15 years, 20 years, while not spending a drop in the bucket compared to most teams that have made ALCSs and World Series, they have what they need. They can develop like anybody, like nobody's business. We've seen it. They scout well. So I'm really interested to see what happens to the Guardians as we move forward here. Moving on to topic number 2. Flax, you had a little college baseball spotlight for the people.
Yeah. I like to. It is Sunday, so let's first talk about a team that's kind of hitting some Sunday scaries right now, and that would be the Arizona Wildcats. Arizona Wildcats came into the season preseason ranked number 24. They went to the College World Series last year, played extremely well, had a couple preseason All-Americans. In the first 2 weeks, or 2 weekends and midweeks, they are 1-7. 1-7. And it's not a good 1-7. It's not like tight ball games. It's losing to Stanford, Michigan, Oregon State in the College Baseball Classic in Arizona. Then midweek you lose to Omaha. And then a 4-game set against UConn. You lose the first 2, barely win the third with 2 runs in the 9th yesterday. And then today on Sunday, lose 11-4 to UConn. UConn is a very good baseball.
They got a big dude hitting nukes, too.
Yeah, Jackson Marshall's 6'8" and came out of University of New Hampshire. D2, really good D2 program. Kid can ball out. But, so can Arizona. UConn has good pitching. They don't have shutdown Arizona offense pitching. Not that I feel like they should. I will say, they had a couple guys that came out of the bullpen. Had a guy that came, you'd love him, came out of a 3/4 slot. Stuff was running like a good 20 inches. It was disgusting. The amount of front hip sinkers he was throwing to these Arizona lefties, gross. But that aside, Arizona doesn't feel like they're playing clean baseball. 20 of 23 stolen bases against them right now. Only a couple bright spots, really, on the pitching side. You got Matthew Martinez and Patrick Morris out of the bullpen. Not a lot on the starting front, but out of the bullpen, these 2 guys, 14.2 combined innings, both with ERAs under a 1.3, 17 total Ks between them. They're doing a good job, at least those 2 guys, of trying to keep them in ball games, but it's really hard playing from behind, and they're doing it a ton. The one game they won, they got up early, still gave up a lead, found a way to get it back in the 9th or in the bottom of the 8th and then close a game out. On the offensive side, Tony Lira has really been the only guy for them that's been swinging the stick well, slashing .382, .432, .529. He's got 3 extra base hits, including a home run, and 5 runs scored. But past that, we're not seeing the kind of dominance that we saw last year from a team that was either able to pitch and keep themselves in a ball game and win close games, or a team that would go against schools that they clearly have better talent than. And I don't say this to knock these mid-major programs, but we all understand the landscape of college baseball. There's a level here at which Arizona has the means, the opportunity, and the attraction to have a higher level of talent. It just exists. UConn is a very good program. It's a great school. But these guys are coming and playing warm weather and probably haven't been outside much until they got here. And then you're letting them beat you up. Now, on the flip side, because I always like to do worse news before good news, Ole Miss has been the bright spot of college baseball through 2 weeks. 8-0 to start the year, and they have two guys that are mashing the baseball. Judd Udermark and Tristan Bicetta, 8 games apiece, 30-plus plate appearances apiece. And we're talking about a combined 9 home runs and 27 RBIs from a team that put up 29 runs against Nevada in their first 3 games. They stuck out a 3-game series, swept Missouri State. Missouri State, for those not aware, very solid baseball school. Got beat by Murray State in the Lehigh Valley Conference?
I can check.
In their conference tournament last year, Murray State, of course, went on to the College World Series, so they clearly ran into a buzzsaw. But I think the 2 years before that were both regional participants. Good schools that Ole Miss is playing early in the season. But even when we're talking about schools that are not top-tier mid-majors, they're blowing them out. It's not even close. So the Rebs are playing really well. A couple pitching highlights. Cade Townsend, 8 2/3, 1.04 ERA and a .81 WHIP. Will Libert, 10 innings pitched, 3.6 ERA and a 1.10 WHIP. And then out of the bullpen, Hudson Calhoun, 7 innings pitched, a 1.29 ERA and a 1.43 WHIP. These guys are playing very good baseball. Mike Bianco knows how to manage a baseball club. They're a very good team. They're going to be successful in the SEC this year after maybe not being that team that we thought they were on the mountaintop the last couple of seasons. I think they're going to kind of take that chip on their shoulder and surprise a lot of people. So those are my two teams to highlight this week. I'm sure we'll start throwing that in a little bit more as the season rolls on, and Ryan will watch a little bit more college baseball and actually add his thoughts in the future.
Missouri Valley Conference initially for Missouri State. However, first-year Conference USA group in 2026.
I did not know they moved over to Conference USA.
There you go.
That's a helpful move for them.
Now you know. Or sorry, the more you know, Flax. The more you know. There it is. There it is. Love it. Absolutely. I'm a little disappointed that you didn't talk about Kent State, but I'll talk about them later. Don't worry. My alma mater will one day make the show.
I assumed it was actually your final thought for the day, and I did not want to steal your thunder. But now it's ruined. Now it's out there.
It is absolutely my final thought for the day, so I wanted to give you a hard time in the meantime.
Do you have actual information from it, or are you just going to talk
I do.
Okay, good.
Oh, I do.
I'm excited.
Come on.
I mean, I have all the information because I watched it, but I want to hear your
Couldn't do that to the boys. I might have only played club baseball at Kent State, but it doesn't mean it's not my alma mater.
Listen, my brother's wife went to Clemson, but he's a pretty big Clemson fan, so you can say whatever. You can be a fan of whoever you want. No heartache from me.
All right. Well, let's move on to everybody's favorite segment here where we're going to learn something as well. That is Jackson's bullpen. Jackson, take it away.
Boys, how we doing today? Another day at Jackson's bullpen. So, today I want to talk about, we got baseball going on finally. We got some MLB ball going on finally. I wanted to look at a couple spring training arms who have looked good so far or could play big impacts on their teams going forward. Picked out 3 arms who I thought looked good in their first outing who could play big impacts this year. First off, from Flax's Orioles, we got Tyler Wells.
Oh, yeah.
First outing, threw an inning, 2 Ks, clean inning, 40% whiff, fastball, 19 IVB, 5 horizontal, pretty unreal at 92 miles an hour. Played a good changeup, good slider, 50% chase for him on the day. Good outing, and this is a guy who, with where the Orioles are, they need him to be a guy this year. They need him to be pitch a lot of innings, whether that be back into the rotation, front of that bullpen as a long reliever type. Wells has to do a lot for the Orioles this year, and this was a really good start for the year for him.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where he lands. They're still pushing for him to be a starter, but they pushed Chase McDermott to the bullpen. My guess is that Tyler Wells will end up working as a swingman. I'm sure that they are planning for somebody to get hurt before opening day hits, and he will take that 5th slot. But, yeah, it was a good start for him. It's good to see him throw the ball.
Jackson just loves two-sided pitchers. I mean, we're talking about a guy who against righties is 39% four-seam fastball, 41% slider, and against lefties is 35% four-seam fastball, 30% changeup, and 20% cutter. So, Jackson, he fits the mold of a guy you might like.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of him. Next guy I got is a Colorado Rocky, Tanner Gordon. Guy who the past year or two has got a bunch of innings with the team, has not looked great, had some issues. First game in spring training, struck out the side over an inning, had a 33% whiff. Fastball was cutting it a little bit more than he has in years past. The fastball is usually at 14 horizontals, at 10 horizontals. Still 94, 95. Slider looked good. Has a good fading changeup off of it. The Rockies are always looking for innings. I feel like they did a good job of adding some veteran presence this offseason, but Gordon is a guy still on the younger side. If he can get going a little bit for him, he could be a big piece for the future as a kind of back the rotation guy.
So that's interesting. You're telling me that his fastball's cutting a little bit more because it feels like that's not his normal profile.
Yeah, it's a little bit more of like a ride run, but it just, I wouldn't say it's cutting more. It just is a little bit less horizontal, I guess is the better way to say it.
Well, so the reason I ask is because I know there's certain pitches that do play better at altitude, right? Like sliders, cutters do better at altitude. Splitters can kind of work in that zone of, not rotating a ton, but rotating enough that they're not really affected by altitude the same way that like a knuckleball would play horrible at altitude. A curveball is not going to break and drop as much. Fastball is not going to have as high of an IVB or a ride factor on it. And I think that a guy who can maybe move the ball different ways than that could be beneficial there.
Yeah, I think with his profile, he has a shorter slider, and his changeup is more of a velo difference pitch than it is a movement pitch. So I feel like he could be a guy that, in theory, if he gets going at Colorado, could be a decent 4 ERA, 4.2 ERA guy in the back of that rotation, which would be awesome for the Rockies.
He also throws a ton of strikes.
Yeah, I was about to say he's a 5% walk rate. We're talking about a guy who's going to do nothing but pound the zone, and I can tell you right now, that's something DePodesta, in my opinion, is going to be looking for. Because the other piece of everything that we're talking about, what he needs to do with pitching, is he needs really good data points, and if you're completely out of the zone, you're not a data point. So a guy who has a 5% walk rate is going to be very helpful in his progression of helping learn how to best play or pitch at altitude.
The last thing I'll say for Tanner Gordon, and I think it's just because it's a fun conversation for the Rockies that we'll probably track from first half to second half, I bet we see some very big swings on sequencing and usage for a lot of guys in the Rockies organization. Yeah. If a guy is in the zone, but he's getting hit, it may be that his stuff isn't great. But if numbers-wise he's where you expect him to be, the pitches should be playing fine off of one another, and he's still getting hit, we might just be throwing the wrong pitches at the wrong time. And I think that that's something that a guy like DePodesta can work with if you're in the zone. And not just DePodesta, but their pitching group, which is a brand new group of guys. So I am interested to see him. I agree. I think he's going to take up a bunch of innings this year. Last year he threw 75. It's not like he's not pitched at that level for a good chunk yet.
Knocked his ERA down by at least a little over 2 runs over his first 2 opportunities at the big league level. Let's keep in mind that that's hard to do at the highest level of baseball.
In way more innings, too.
Yeah.
The last guy I got is Twins number 5 prospect Kendry Rojas, left-handed arm. Was up in AAA last year, 23 years old, expected to make his debut this year. In his first spring training outing, tossed 2 innings, 3 Ks, 42% whiff, 36% chase. Has a fastball, 15 IVB, 8 horizontal, 97 miles an hour. This guy chucks it. Then plays a little short gyro slider off of it, then a nice little depthy changeup at 89. With where the Twins are at, they need some back of the rotation help. They kind of have a top 2 that looks good with Ryan. Or I guess Pablo's out now, so just Ryan at the top of that rotation.
Yeah.
But they need some depth behind him. Rojas seems like he's at the point where he's going to get in the majors. I'm not sure if it's a bullpen or starter role for him, but he looked really, really good opening out. And I feel like this is a guy with a lot of whiff upside.
Yeah, I talked about the Twins the other day in a post I made on TikTok and Instagram. Bailey Ober, Simeon Woods Richardson, they're going to be what you expect them to be. They're middle of the rotation arms. They're going to give you a good start every 5 days, but it's nothing special. They're not going to shut the other team down outside of once every 5 or 6 starts. And that's fine. I do think Simeon Woods Richardson is maybe on a better projection path than Bailey Ober, but Taj Bradley's got to be better, and there's going to be some young guys that have to step up and take innings. I think that this is a good choice. I think Kendry Rojas is one of those guys that has good enough, like you said, swing and miss upside to be worthwhile, even if it's like a young move out of the bullpen to give him some experience, some swingman starts, if that's the way that that things fit.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, anybody that Jackson says can chuck it can be on my roster. I think that's where I start this conversation. Look, we're talking about a left-handed arm here whose floor is somewhere in the middle of your bullpen, right? I think that's a great spot for Minnesota to be in with this type of arm. Up to 97, his changeup is a little bit harder than most, but definitely a solid offering. So really excited to see what he does. I think he's a really good call-out, Jackson. I think he's somebody that everybody is going to get to see throw, 30-plus innings this year, no problem.
Yeah, I agree. Really fired up to watch him pitch and really fired up to watch some more spring training. I appreciate y'all having me on this week. Had a fun topic, so let's have a good rest of the episode.
All right, that was Jackson's bullpen. We hope you learned as much as we learned. But Flax, let's get to topic number 3 of the day. 3 bubble rookie bats to make their opening day rosters. We didn't make this complicated for you guys. We picked the 3 names that we know are already probably going through your head, and we did it on purpose because I think all 3 of them almost have a different tier or level of their actual opportunity in our eyes, which is what makes this fun. So those 3 rookies: number 1 prospect in baseball by MLB.com, Konnor Griffin; Kevin McGonigle of the Detroit Tigers; and Justin Crawford of the Philadelphia Phillies. Flex, let's start this conversation with baseball's number 1 prospect. And you and I are pretty much on the same page here that Konnor Griffin, arguably almost no matter how well he plays, will not be on the opening day roster.
Yeah, and we talked about this with Jack Wilson on last week's episode, and I think all 3 of us were kind of on the same page. It's not time yet. And I think partially, from a roster construction perspective, where you're at with guys like Paul Skeens, where you're at with guys like Jared Jones, your time is kind of moving, and you need a guy like Konnor Griffin to step in when the window is opening. You don't necessarily need Konnor Griffin to step in to create that window. I think some of the pieces they added this year on the offensive side, Ryan O'Hearn was a great addition. And then also taking into account some of the young guys that are now going to be a part of it. Joe Stinson Garcia. Start looking at potentially a good bounce back year from Brian Reynolds.
Marcell Ozuna as well.
Marcell Ozuna. I knew I was missing one. I like to think that if these guys can start to show that this is an offense that can help out their pitching staff, then you get a couple months into the year and you say, okay, he's been doing it well enough at AAA. He's gotten his time there. He's shown us there's nothing else for him to do there. Let's add him to this and make this offense even better.
Yeah, I think you're completely right. I think especially if they start hot out of the gate, and Konnor Griffin also more than likely at AAA, in our opinion, starts hot out of the gate, I think you see him get an opportunity early on this year. But more than anything, I think this is one of those players who, similar to Nick Kurtz last year, will need to just force his way onto the roster by hitting so well at AAA, you can't keep him off. We actually saw Nick Kurtz get brought onto the Major League roster after the PPI deadline. It's player performance incentive deadline. This is what means if your guy's up prior to then, wins rookie of the year, this gets you an extra pick in the draft in most scenarios. There are a couple other stipulations, just giving you a brief overview of how it generally works. But Nick Kurtz forced his way on the roster after the PPI deadline even, right? Basically saying, I am too good to be here. I believe at 19 years old that Konnor Griffin will probably have to do something similar. And I don't think it's bad for his development. This is a guy who, in my opinion, probably just needs more time as a pro, not because he's not talented enough to be on your Major League roster potentially to start the year, but like expectations, continuing to be the guy you are. I get really stressed and concerned. We watched the Orioles bring Jackson Holliday up so quickly. Jackson Holliday's talent has nothing to do with whether or not he should or should not be on the Orioles Major League roster, but continuing to adjust, being part of a Major League roster, being part of a professional organization, it takes time. I think they would be best to keep Konnor Griffin at the AAA level to start the year and force him to hit his way into the lineup, of which he simply might do quickly. The favorite to start the season at shortstop against what roster resource, or Fangraphs roster resource, believes is Nick Gonzalez. Flax, number 2 on this list is one of your favorite bats in all of minor league baseball, Kevin McGonigle. We've got him as a 50-50 to make the opening day roster.
I say 50-50, and I think we talked about this. You know, the difference between where the Tigers are at and where the Pirates are at from an offensive standpoint, and what kind of protection that lineup can provide a young hitter, two very different ends of the spectrum. When you start talking about that lineup for Detroit, guys like Gary Carpenter, Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson, even a hitter like Javi Baez, there's so many players in that lineup that can give breathing room to a Kevin McGonigle. And I think this is very similar to the situation that Jackson Holliday was in 2024 of, you know, he doesn't have to be that guy. He can kind of, but not really succeed for a year and still get a good amount of at-bats, still have his opportunity to get a feel for being at the big league level. He's one of those guys where the bat-to-ball skill and the swing itself are so transferable to the highest level, but you don't know what that looks like as a hitter until you get there and do it. So McGonigle just needs that opportunity. The reason I say 50-50 is because when you start looking at the roster construction as a whole, I just think he fits better. My guess is that Javi Baez will be destined for the outfield this year. Honestly, he did a great job
Glove
at it.
center fielder.
He did a great job at it last. All-star center fielder. I don't believe he won the Gold Glove, but either way,
No, general statement of his capabilities.
Oh, sure, yes.
He's not a Gold Glove center fielder, but you have a guy with that defensive prowess.
Yes, absolutely, and he played it really well. I think the only reason I'd say not quite yet is Zach McKinstry's still young. He's shown flashes of being a really solid bat as well. And I think for this team, as young as your roster is, not starting the clock too early for a guy like McGonigle, who is so good, is really where you could end up seeing him start the year in AAA. Now, if he hits so well in spring training that it would raise eyebrows, Scott Harris might not have a choice.
I think the biggest thing that is on Zach McKinstry's side to break camp as their shortstop is simply the fact that he has no options. I think it's one thing that we just don't always talk about enough.
Yep.
Whereas he played well enough to be, if I remember correctly, tell me if I'm wrong, Flax, the utility Gold Glove in the American League last year, right? This is a guy who, and if it wasn't last year, it was the year before. But I know he's done that within his career. It might have been the Silver Slugger, actually. I might be completely off. He might have had the utility Silver Slugger in the AL. But I'm going to need you to look this up now because he did win some award as a utility man in 2025. Either way, point being here, when I flip back to Kevin McGonigle and why I think he has a realistic chance to make the roster out of spring training is because Detroit is in a position where what he does in spring training could be what dictates if he makes the roster or not. I don't think Konnor Griffin's in that scenario, right? No. We're talking about a team that is clearly in the window. We're talking about a team who just took a massive risk on what could really be a one-year deal for Framber Valdez. They have one more year of arguably the best pitcher on the planet in Tarek Skubal. You got to go for it. So if you have a bat as high profile in your minor league organization as Kevin McGonigle, and you think he can help you day one and play similar defense to the other guy who's there, and oh, by the way, you can hit him in the 7 hole and he gets some time to adjust, it's hard to think that they won't give him a true look at shortstop.
Yeah, and you got to think about who else is on that roster. Matt Vierling is coming back fully healthy this year. And I don't think people really understand how high of a talent Matt Vierling truly is. Not only can he play a really solid corner outfield, he can play a very strong third base. You could very easily see him platoon with Colt Keith over there early in the season. I think, you know, if there was a situation where McGonigle had better lineup flexibility as maybe even a switch hitter, you could see him kind of take a little bit of a step over Zach McKinstry, but he did win a Silver Slugger last year. Just not a guy who was a slouch offensively. If he's meh defensively, realistically, you'll kind of take it. If he isn't killing you on that side of the ball, but he's still becoming a 1.5 to 2 WAR player, The reality of the situation is if you have a team full of 2+ WAR players, you're going to be very, very solid, especially when one or two of them is going to turn into be a 5 or 6 WAR player. It's just inevitable, at least offensively.
I agree. So it's going to be a very interesting battle at the shortstop position in Detroit this spring training. Justin Crawford. We love this guy. We love the name. Carl gave us a lot to watch when we were growing up, so we're very excited to see what his son can do at the big league level. He is, unlike the other two guys we're talking about, the favorite to win the opening day center field job. First AB, what does he do? Smashes a double into the left center gap the opposite way. We're talking about a guy who is extremely advanced when it comes to his bat to ball skill. We're talking about a guy who has all the speed and the defense to stick in center field, no problem. Honestly, Flax, this is the only case that I could think of right now, especially of who we're discussing, where I feel like it's simply Justin Crawford's to lose.
I don't know who else would play the position, to be honest with you. When you look at their roster construction, you still are keeping Brandon Marsh in the lineup. You're still now putting Adolis Garcia in right field. Unless you start taking infielders and start moving them to outfield roles, the guy who was supposed to play the outfield and be the fourth outfielder this year was Nick Castellanos. Very clearly, there was non-baseball related stuff that made that not be the case. So then it becomes, well, what do we do? This is a team that needs a little bit of youth, honestly, in their lineup anyways. Crawford's 22, Bryson Stott is 28, Baum is 29, and Brandon Marsh is 28. Besides that, everyone is about 33 years old and up. You need a little bit of youth in the lineup, and even if he consistently swings it out of the 9-hole and puts up, consistent on-base numbers, good bat-to-ball skills, keeps the Ks down and gets the ball in play consistently, he's going to be on base for a lot of Kyle Schwarber home runs. He'll probably be on base for a lot of Bryce Harper home runs. That's kind of the goal here.
Yeah, his main competition right now is Yohan Rojas, who's expected to be the fourth outfielder at this point. Rojas in 2023, when he first came up in 59 games, put up a 1.4 WAR. I think there was a lot of hope around what he could do at that position at 22 years old. Since then, in 191 games, he's equated to a 1.5 WAR total. So we're not talking about a guy who's a poor ball player by any means, but he simply has not been good enough offensively for them to continue to run him out there. I do think that Justin Crawford has a legitimate opportunity and chance to win Rookie of the Year this year. I think making the opening day roster is going to be a huge part of giving him that opportunity. Flax, you picked him to be, if I remember correctly,
I believe
the
I did.
NL Rookie of the Year.
Now, and here's the thing I'll say about Yohan Rojas, and I'm gonna go a little bit deep here. So if you are not an analytics person, just cover your earmuffs. When you look back at his 2023, I think the thing that stands out so much is that the underlying quality of contact metrics were not that good, but he had a 410 batting average on balls in play. And I think, batting average on balls in play is probably the biggest misnomer statistic in a single season, but probably one of my favorite to kind of predict the consistency of a player season to season. His next 2 years in more and then a similar amount of plate appearances, we saw a very similar hitter, right? A guy who's hovering around a 290-ish batting average on balls in play, a 260-ish, WOBA. He's just a fine hitter. He's not bad, but where his value sits is how incredibly good he is defensively, which is why he is the perfect fourth outfielder. He'll play a full game every 4 or 5 days. He'll be a good defensive replacement later in games for the majority of the season, play really solid defense, get 150 plate appearances to 200 plate appearances, and somewhat try and make the most of it. But I think, he's got an option still. He's only got 2 years of service time. It's someone who's flexible for the roster, but Justin Crawford, bat to ball, has exponentially higher quality of contact, which means he's going to consistently have better numbers on batting average on balls in play, which tells me that the prediction level of his success offensively, while again, similar to his dad, being a very, very good defender on a team that still needs it in a center field of a ballpark that is fairly big.
And difficult to play to begin with. There is a lot of different
Very
crevices in
weird.
that park, whether people want to admit it or not.
I don't even think it's his to lose. Like, I think it is his. I don't know what else you would do if you're Dave Dombrowski.
Again, I think
you're
the
just
answer right
making
now
the
is Yohan Rojas, and I just don't know that makes sense. Like, the upside that Crawford brings tells me that you give him an opportunity, because guess what? He's got enough options. So worst comes to worst, it's just decided that he needs some more time. But we're also talking about a guy who I believe has a lifetime 332 average at the minor league level.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
I mean, this are three. I think
only
it's
guy
322. I'm incorrect there. His lowest number last year in batting average. And again, I get that most people don't give a rat's about batting average anymore. But frankly, when we're talking about bat to ball guys, it is extremely important. The lowest his batting average was all last year in 2025 was 315. We're talking about a kid who puts the barrel on the ball on a regular basis.
So 2 things there. The only guy I can think of that like consistently was doing the same thing and it translated was Jacob Wilson. And then second thing, my mom is going to love that you held off from the foul language there. She's going to appreciate that.
You're welcome. I love it. I love it. You know I love you, Mindy. All right, so Flax, I appreciate it. Guys, we are expecting Justin Crawford to win that spot. Roster Resource, as we've been giving their prediction, is also expecting Justin Crawford to win that spot. Flax, we're going to go to final thoughts here, and you decided you wanted to test me, and I was prepared for this test, just so you know. And I want everybody to know that my alma mater, Kent State, the MAC runs through us this year. So if you are coming for the title, you got to go through the boys in Northeast Ohio. It's just what it is.
I'm more interested to hear you pronounce the names of the guys on Kent State that you have chosen to talk about.
Yeah, Sawyer Solitaria. Dude, I had it right the first time, and you looked at me. First off, 6'5", dude's a monster.
Yeah.
4 home runs to start the season early. After a few games into the season, he was actually leading all of Division I college baseball in home runs. Shout out to him. He's been an absolute dog. And Micah Rienstra Kirikov in center field has been a dog. First off, making multiple diving plays, keeping the team in the game. He's also got 10 RBIs early in this season, coming up big when things matter. So I'm pumped for my Golden Flashes this year. The roster looks good. Like I said, the MAC runs through Kent State.
I don't think you're wrong. I think you've got that. I mean, they were picked by the collective coaches of the MAC to finish first this year, so I don't think we're breaking new ground. But after watching them play against Tennessee, I tend to agree. They also get hit by a lot of pitches. They crowd the plate and force pitchers inside, and they ain't moving.
Kent starts the season 3-2, but within those 3 wins are 2 wins at Tennessee. It's a good start. They also had a really hard-nosed game against LSU, so I think Kent's cooking with gas this year. I'm excited to watch.
You know, and we don't need to get too deep into it, but I said this about a couple other teams that are trying to push themselves to prepare for regionals and stuff. I don't think that these were games that felt like must win. It's a 60-game season. You lose 3 against Tennessee and LSU, who cares, right? They're not games anybody expects you to win anyways. But the value that Kent State now goes back to the MAC with is an understanding of playing in a tough environment, because more than likely they're not hosting a regional. They're going to a tough environment. And their pitchers now know what it is to face some really good hitters. Their hitters know what it is to face some really good arms from a couple of different places. I think there's immense value in just getting to play those games and the comfort that it brings throughout the rest of the season and feeling like, well, we can beat anybody. We just took 2 or 3 from Tennessee, and you want us to play people in the MAC? Come at us.
I love it.
Yeah. My final thought this week is more of a somber note to finish on, but I wanted to make sure that we got this out there and said this. Journalist for Tennessee sports. I mostly notably know him from Tennessee baseball, but he's covered every Tennessee sport that exists. Wes Rucker was unfortunately killed in a car accident last week. So thoughts and prayers to his family, the Tennessee family, the volunteers, the people that have worked with him, know him, or were working with him. Just a terrible situation, a sad situation, and I wanted to make sure that we pass along our well wishes.
Agreed. Flax, we appreciate that for sure. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us, as always, here on Baseball Unstitched. Like always, share the podcast, Spotify, Apple, or YouTube. Make sure to tell your friends who love baseball about it. Of course, as well, follow us on socials, Twitter, X, whichever you'd like to call it, as I know I always make Flax jump when I say it, Instagram, TikTok, and also now YouTube Shorts for anybody who is part of that community. But as always, I really appreciate everybody hanging around, listening to the podcast. Have a great week.